it's just incredible. And like just hearing the people's stories and like why they do it, you know, it's like, it's very much not about money in any of these circumstances, you know, like in either of the buildings. It was about like really connecting to nature and really like they're all about saving the planet and trying to live off grid as much as possible. And yeah, just understanding that we don't need so much.
And I think that was that mental health side of it, like just going to unwind. You don't have to bring much, you don't have to consume much, and just connect with nature and yourself.
Hi there, this is Jack Baldwin with Raynard Custom Homes, and I'm excited to start another episode of our By Design podcast. I'm going to make some introductions as we get started. I've got my very good friend Kalyn Kight, one of my partners at Raynard Custom Homes. Kalyn, how are you?
Yeah, doing good. It's nice warm weather now, so I'm enjoying getting outside a little bit more than this past winter, so it's good.
Yeah, me and you are excited about baseball season starting, golf season starting.
Yep.
It's springtime. I can hear the birds. I can see the flowers on the trees. So here in Georgia, we're getting excited for spring. So thanks for joining us today. It's good to have you as always.
Absolutely. Excited about it.
And we've got our other partner from Raynard, James Knight from Brisbane. James, how are you this morning?
Good, Jack. It's good to be back speaking with you guys. How you doing?
Excellent. What's Brisbane like this time of year? We're coming into spring in Atlanta. What's Brisbane like right now?
Well, right now, hot, steamy, humid, rain.
Wow, complete opposite. Unless you're in Melbourne and you've got to wear a thick jacket to join us this morning, like our friend Damien Lipp and Stephanie. Good morning to you guys.
Morning.
Morning, how are you?
Damien, Stephanie, I'd love for y'all to give us an introduction as to who you are, and a little bit of a backstory about yourselves as individuals and as filmmakers.
We're a husband and wife creative team. We have our own sort of production creative company called Be More Designs, and we regularly worked with Shelter Stream on tiny spaces. So Damien and I have worked together in a lot of different capacities with design and filmmaking, but we've always had a love for architecture and building homes. So when this opportunity came up to work on tiny spaces in Iceland, we were very, very excited.
Yeah, we love the films. We've been streamers and fans of Shelter for over a year and a half ourselves, as far back as we've become aware of it. So we love the work that you guys have done. I've only seen Tiny Spaces so far. But yeah, Damien, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you guys got involved with Shelter.
So yeah, we produced a film a few years back, and the team, like the distribution team behind the film shot, was Dustin Clare, who is the founder of Shelter Stream. And then he really liked our work, and he just sort of reached out and said, hey, do you want to shoot a TV series about architecture and small spaces? And we did the first season in Victoria, and then we were actually on a business trip to Iceland with another company from San Francisco, and I reached out to Dustin and I said, hey, we're in Iceland, should we do season 2? And he's like, yeah,
Definitely.
So let's go.
That's awesome. What a great place for your business to take you. I've dreamed about visiting Iceland, and we love to travel, and I know that's high on Kalyn's list, right?
Yeah, it's probably my number one bucket list location right now.
It's not far from you guys.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
So hopefully within the next few years I can make it out there. So yeah,
I'm thinking that's going to be our next company trip. I'd like to angle for that. Apparently a business trip's going to be pretty productive up there, I hear. Before you guys did Shelter and architectural films, is there anything notable or exciting that you guys got to produce as filmmakers that you're proud of?
We did Australia's first one-take feature. So it's a one-shot feature film around a bikie gang in northern Victoria. So and that's currently streaming on Stan. That's through Dustin and Camille's other company, Fighting Chance Films. So yeah, so we've got that, and then we've got another film on Amazon, which Stephanie and I are both actually the lead actors in. It's a,
Really?
it's a little
slasher.
horror.
It's a horror slasher.
Little horror found footage film we did when we first met, and that was so we've been literally working together for the last 11 years. So.
But lately, it's mainly been mental health documentaries, which has been a bit more, I think, rewarding.
Yeah,
Right, very relatable.
So yeah, no,
that's so cool.
Yeah, just got our fingers in a few pies. So yeah,
nice. I like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you guys sort of answered the first question I had. I know you were on a business trip to Iceland, so I guess my question would go: the first business trip to Iceland. How did that come about? Did you guys have to do a research phase? What happened when you guys were there the first time that you said we have to do this go around for this?
Well, so we worked with a company in San Francisco, and we're already over there. And I'd already heard from a few friends who had been to Iceland previously, and they just said it's the most magical place. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure it's pretty good. And then we get there, and it's just mind-blowingly amazing. Like, I can't describe it. And yeah, just before we left, I said to Dustin, hey, let's go and shoot something over there. So we all just got together just on a big Slack conversation, and it was literally 14 locations of shooting. We got all of these houses in line, and we got all of these interviews lined up, and so
the team really hit the ground running and made it come together very, very quickly to make it make sense in a timeline, because we did travel across the entire country.
I think it was about a week of pre-production, and literally just cramming everything in, just on the phone, and like just running, gunning, producing, really, just every, and then be on email, like just the whole time, and just and it like literally they would find from Australia, they would find like locations and say, hey, we found another place, shoot out here, and just go and film that. So and because it is like a relatively small island, but so we were just driving for hours, and
which was no problem because it's
no kidding.
And there were times when we were driving through the countryside where Steph just had the camera like sort of hanging around her neck, and I was like, oh, film that, or shoot that, or shoot that, or shit, that's awesome. And this would be literally for the whole time, actually.
Yeah, I was about to say that's probably was a continuous thing, like just the camera rolling the whole time, basically.
Really.
I love when that excitement that the electricity hits, and like you can't stop the momentum.
It's incredible, and the fact that you were there and the sun's up for 18 hours, it
was so productive.
How long total were you guys there? So did you guys, it sounds like you stayed your business trip, then you just stayed to finish the shelter series. So how long total were you guys there?
I was there for 3 weeks. I was doing a documentary on the glaciers and the volcano that erupted previously. So I was there for a week and a half, and then Steph flew over, and
then we were there together for 2 weeks.
Yeah, for 2 weeks after
so
that.
You would have been there almost a month.
Yeah, I was there a month.
Wow. That's a nice little project amount of time there.
Absolutely. Is there a process that you go through when you're selecting houses? Because you got some really good examples of some neat architecture over there. Like, what goes into that?
So Dustin and Camille, like, are really avid architecture people. Like, they love the architecture. Obviously, they've got their streaming service, and they would just obviously we've seen a few of these small houses pop up anyway, because we follow these houses on Instagram as well, but because you sort of already know that they're there, it's easy enough to just like drop a message in Instagram and just say, hey, we're doing a series, and people really just jump at the fact that someone wants to film your house and show the process of what you've done, and like a team from Australia flying all the way to Iceland is like probably not something that happens very often.
Mm.
So I think that's sort of how people jumped on board it, really.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's really neat.
Like, and it was even like we reached out to the Museum of Iceland or the National Gallery of Iceland, and the same day they would respond saying, "Of course, we can get someone from like the head of Iceland."
Right.
Yeah,
You
they're
know?
just so accommodating.
And they would just bring, because it's about like because there's such a small community base. There's 350,000 people live on the island,
Right.
and they're like, of course, like we want to promote as much as we can our land. So absolutely do what you want. Like, yeah. And
you do get a welcoming spirit. You definitely get a welcoming spirit from all those people that you interviewed.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
And like we were actually driving from one of the shoots to just down the road, and then we saw one of the turf farms. As we were driving, we called them and said, "Hey, we're driving through here. Can we come and film like your turf farm?"
Mhm.
And they said, I'll call you back in 10 minutes. I'll find out from the National Museum if you're allowed to film. Literally 10 minutes later, yes, you can come and film. So.
A little less bureaucracy than what we're
I was
used to.
about to say, both our countries probably can attest to that would never happen. 10 minutes to get a hold of the government and respond back.
Very cool.
So,
But I guess that Camille and Dustin really came up with the narrative that they wanted to tell. So they wanted the main themes of specific episodes. So they did really try and find buildings that would represent that. And a number of buildings that would represent that. So we did have to interview a lot. Like we found so many beautiful houses for different reasons.
How many did you say? Could you like guess how many interviews you guys had total and homes you saw?
So many, like close to maybe, did we interview like 15 or
yeah,
so
I think
people?
it was 15 people, and
Wow.
then
Well,
like,
even more, because in one place there might be 4 people.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
and then like
And then there's more B-roll that we shot of different like
old churches.
but not just old churches, like little turf structures inside mountains,
Wow.
and that would be used as a shed.
Just yeah.
Wow.
We would find so much just by traveling as well.
And literally, that's the point of it. It's just like not saying that I'm not a good cinematographer, but like you could literally point your camera anywhere there, and it's just otherworldly, you know.
Yeah.
That's what made it so difficult to edit, because everything was
Yeah.
Yeah.
The director's cut is actually a 5-hour documentary
Yes.
on landscape.
Wow.
It's longer than the actual episode.
Yeah. We need a petition to get the director's cut on Shelter.
Just the landscape.
Yeah.
What type of stories were you trying to cover? Because you've only done what, 5 episodes, 5 houses. What were the specifics that went into each episode? Like what stories were you trying to get out of people?
So some of them were about the family. So the water tower one was more focused on the family. Obviously, there was a few edits back and forth with Dustin and Camille, and there was a structure that we had which had two locations in the one episode. But the emotion we couldn't really get the emotion out of, because you were going from one person's story to the next person's story, and it didn't really work.
It didn't work in connecting you to you know,
the particular person's story. So because we sat on each episode, stayed on each family or each person's house, we were able to really bring an emotional piece together with majority of these episodes.
Because we had turf structures, refurbished spaces, prefab, and churches.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you'd have like 4 churches in one episode, or it was just like the refurbished one was the most challenging because it was really emotional. Who has Studio Boa, which is her art studio, was supposed to be cut with the water tower, and they were both very emotionally charged episodes. So I think to honor their stories, it was better to separate them.
Yeah, and they don't actually know about the churches. So there's another series, another episode, a bonus episode coming out.
It says it on Shelter.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. I thought it did.
Yeah, I've not seen it yet, but that's exciting. We get
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're okay with plugging new stuff, and we
And
get
the
people
church
excited about it.
Yeah,
Amazing now.
yeah, it's incredible. But yes, does that answer your question, James?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to go into a little bit more depth on it, so that's all.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I'll go into the next one I got here. So Australia obviously has a very strong connection to the landscape. And we often get tourists that come over and have the same sort of experience, like could do a lot of B-roll on our landscape as well. Through your experience visiting and speaking with designers and homeowners, what are your feelings towards like the materials and the connection to place? I see when you watch the Australian season, you kind of get you're using core 10 a lot of the time. There's a lot of like corrugated steel and all that sort of thing. You see different materials being used over there. What would your opinion on like the different architecture between the two countries be and the use of materials to connect it?
Well, we have the ability to do so much more and be so much more creative with architecture because of the landscape. And I mean, our conditions aren't that, our resources and the conditions aren't particularly harsh in comparison. Iceland has 100-kilometer winds and sandstorms and snow, and there's just so many harsh conditions that really dictate what you can do. Most of the structures are built with concrete because they have to last and
withstand the weather.
I mean, the place where the mountain meets the sea, if that wasn't built the way it was, it would just blow away. One of
the stories that came out of that was, which we didn't actually put in the documentary, was the designer of the building said they're from Malta.
No, they're from
anyway, they're from a warm European country, and they designed this building and they said, no, it's going to look great with this. And the homeowner said, it's very, very windy. It's like one of the windiest parts in Iceland. The wood is not going to hold onto the side of this building. And they said, Latvia. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. No, it won't. No, it won't. Yes, it will. And literally a month later, all of the wood paneling was completely ripped off.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
But now she says it's so quiet, and it's predominantly made like massive glass windows. She can look outside and she can look at the water and see little tornadoes.
Oh, wow.
An actual weather system happening, and it's completely quiet, and she feels safe because it has to be built so properly.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of fitting in with the landscape as well, like the using of turf, like it, there was one episode you'll see in the church episode. You will be just driving and you're just looking at a grass field, and then you go around the side of it, and there's a church there inside the dirt, and you could drive and you not even tell that it's there. So the way that they integrated the housing into the turf, and that the reason that they did this is because the wood that was there was driftwood because there were no forests on Iceland. So there's barely any resources. They used the rocks. They used what driftwood they could, which was come from Serbia,
Russia, Siberia.
Siberia. Sorry, and so they really had to just work with the stuff off the land that they could.
Yeah.
So
something we take for granted, totally.
Yeah.
100%.
There was such a bad and negative image towards turf housing until recently as well, in the last 50 years. And I think the fact that modern architects in Iceland are really utilizing it, it honors the landscape and the space, rather than having this modern structure that you've just put in a field.
Right.
It's a really beautiful way of building a home. where it just feels like it should always have been there. Like it
and
really, yeah.
and representing like the cultural building of Iceland.
Like
Right.
obviously there's turf farms, but in terms of these beautiful houses they're building at the moment, it's really cool to see.
We get it's funny because we had this conversation the other day. One of our interior designers on one of our group meetings that we had, she was like, I love turf. I'm trying to put it into a house. I was like, all right, we're going to make this happen somehow. We'll figure out one project, one client that really wants it.
Right.
They teach classes in Iceland, and I think it's a dying sort of education on how to do it, but I think it would be really important to carry it down so we can do it everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Damien.
So, and even the glass cottage,
Mhm.
they would bring not only were they using the materials on the outside of the building, they would also integrate it inside the building as well. So they would utilize it on like the lighting structures. They would use the moss inside just to create like an own little ecosystem and to save money and like.
But it was also honoring national designers.
Right.
So Iceland designers, so everything was designed internally.
Nothing was really offshore. It was like they very proud to be Icelandic and to integrate it into their buildings. So
I love that.
It completely blends in with the landscape. It's sitting on a lava field, and it's sitting in front of Hitler, which is a
super volcano.
A super volcano.
Right. Side note on the glass. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Get David.
They say Australians are crazy because we swim with sharks and spiders and snakes. These guys just build houses underneath volcanoes.
Great artists, like the owner of that house. I think they're really happy people, but they're always just like living a little bit on the
right
on
in
the edge.
Yeah.
So people actually as you're driving through the landscape of Iceland, you can actually see that they've got a house situated, and right behind the house is a vertical cliff, right? And just behind the house, between the cliff and the house, are about 15 rows of trees. And I never worked out what it was for until you see around the house there are scattered boulders. So what the trees would do, they would slow the boulders down from crashing into their house.
Wow.
That's something else.
That's just an entirely different type of design challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
We got fines in Australia. They got boulders rolling down the hill.
Yeah. So the glass house, that's actually a gentleman who it's business. So does he rent it out? Is that what I heard? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. So it's an Airbnb for him. So he just has guests stay there, and
I'm sure he would stay there from time to time just to unwind. Because
I'm taking personal notes.
Yeah.
I would love to go stay there. That looked, that one, I think that was my favorite, just because of, you probably feel staying in there, you probably feel like you're just sleeping outside, like out in the landscape. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. And like just hearing the people's stories and like why they do it, it's like, it's very much not about money in any of these circumstances, like in either of the buildings. It was about like really connecting to nature and really like they're all about saving the planet and trying to live off grid as much as possible. And just understanding that we don't need so much.
And I think that was that mental health side of it, like just going to unwind. You don't have to bring much, you don't have to consume much, and just connect with nature and yourself. I think that's such a beautiful message.
Yeah, it is.
I was drawn to that too. That was kind of my next question, was about the minimalist living. Did you guys seek those stories out? Are you guys drawn yourselves to minimal living? I found it so inspiring as I was listening to people talking about that they could just be present. That was a big thing, was if I can leave more things behind and really, really think about what I need to live and to thrive, can I then get to a point where I can be present? And then you just touched on this, Damien, about being a good steward of resources. You know, I'm actually being mindful. I think one of the gentlemen was talking about how it's good for the soul to live off of less resources than you really need. And those quotes were so memorable and so touching to me, because it was like really resonating with the why, like you just said. Like, why are they doing this? They're doing it for the act of living, not just create, like here in our culture. I don't know if it's probably the same in Melbourne in parts, but it seems like your homes are about your status and your ego, and to make a choice to be smaller is intentional. But that's a long preamble to ask about what do you guys think about minimal living? Were you drawn to it? Were you inspired by it? Were you seeking it out? Like, what was your relationship with minimalism like as you were capturing these stories?
I do think I find it very inspirational to see that people what you can fit, how large you can make a space in a very minimalistic way.
But I think, yeah, like in our everyday lives, things can get quite overwhelming. So I find it really inspirational to see what they have done, because I think it would be one of my dreams to have, a bit of land in a forest somewhere and just put a container home on it. And anytime I needed to personally kind of unwind, or I wanted to just, create, or, switch off my phone, I think it would just, really enrich my life. And I can see it. I can see it when I'm there and I'm looking at what they've done. And they look so much happier because of it.
Yeah.
And in saying that, like, we weren't actively, like, that wasn't a thing of like saying, tell us how awesome it is to be minimalistic. It was literally like, this is how we live.
Yeah.
And it's just part of the nature from the people that we interviewed. Like, they were very, and I don't mean this in, like, they were very, very simple lifestyle. And like, I think it's a fantastic choice. There was, everyone smiles there. Pretty much. Like, they've still got their day jobs, but they come home and they like unwind. They've got family. They just I think a different approach to it.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about a little bit of this, but Iceland architecture obviously takes on very unique vernacular and unique items because of the distinct characteristics of its geography. How do you guys think the different homes you document reflect Iceland's architecture and culture? And again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit throughout our conversation.
Well, again, with the fancy new builds, there was one of, I don't know if you remember, in the turf video, there was a house on a lake, and it was a modern, massive house, like 6-bedroom house with massive floor plan. Not that we got to shoot inside that one, but they integrated the original, sort of Icelandic turf installation.
But I don't think that's across the board people are adapting that in Icelandic architecture as a whole. I think people are still quite crammed together in the cities. So if you go into Reykjavik, that's where the majority of the 350,000 live. So I think, it's all concrete structures. They're not exactly beautiful buildings. Because I think they have to withstand, obviously, whatever conditions they have, but also fit a lot of people.
Right.
And I do think there is a push to be a bit more creative and minimal. But as you go out to the other towns, you can see that creativity. You just really don't get a sense of it in the city, I would say.
Gotcha.
And also reusing spaces was something that we saw more often. Because there are these really cool structures, like, a water tower or And rather than removing it, we saw it come up quite often that people would be reusing these spaces, which I think is a really environmental way to build.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. It makes me think of like in Australia, you know, if you think of like the 80s and 90s, Australia went through like kind of a dull period for architecture. But like 2000s and onwards, we're starting to see more and more interesting sort of engineering and architecture come into the cities. Do you think Iceland is going through that same sort of change? Like they went through a really harsh period of like concrete buildings, and now you're seeing more and more creativity emerge.
Well, it would be really interesting to see, because I don't know if those materials are necessarily able to withstand their conditions anyway. But I would say for sure, people would be way more creative now.
And I also do think because of the internet, like people are definitely getting their flex on with the like architecture, you know, like they're looking at other people and they're like, yeah, this is really sick. I also want to have a curve in my bathroom, or I want to have a waterfall in my lounge room that I walk through and I walk under with an open garden space, you know, with a glass window that looks out over the forest in the morning.
But we did see a lot of Corten and Shishuki Barn as well. The water tower used that. He just has to recoat it, I think, every year, because it gets a lot of sand.
Yeah, like sand blasting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great way of reusing. Like, it's a concrete structure, but that's a really great way of building some uniqueness around that. It's very strong, but it's so beautiful as well.
I think with everything you guys are talking about, there's just such a close connection to the earth and to the environment. It's like, it's kind of primal. It's kind of, you know, it's not what we see in the urban areas in the city. Like the cities and the urban areas present their own set of challenges, but it's just kind of neat to hear these stories about the oceans and the rocks and the boulders and the earth and how they play into architecture. And then that's to me, that's the challenge of architecture. It's like taking the space you've been given and finding a solution for it. And however that looks is really fun. And to see how that unfolds in all those different ways. It's so cool that you guys got to tell those stories. I'm just fascinated by it. So
I guess architects and homeowners and designers, they really have to be problem solvers. You know, you really need to know your location. You can't do what everyone else has done. You really, have to honor the land, honor your space, and make the best of what you have.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
So I did have another question on materials, but I think we've covered that pretty extensively at this point. So I'm going to change it up.
Yeah.
This kind of question / opinion from you guys isn't on our list. But just looking and watching each of the episodes, the Australian ones and the Icelandic one, I kind of had the insight that like you kind of get a breakdown of each episode into 3 different stories that make up a whole. That's what it felt like to me, at least. And it kind of started with like the homeowners or the clients kind of tell the story that inspired them to get started. And then after that, you get the story of like who they're using. So you got the design process and then the build process. And then they tell the story of like how everyone came together, and you kind of go to a wider context of like how the community gets around them and helps. So I was just kind of get like your opinion on how important these communities around these builds, whether it's in Iceland or in the Australian series that you did, how important that is to getting these houses built. Like we find that without a team of people doing it, it's near impossible to get these things created and built. Is that something that's consistent through what you're finding as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think that's what makes it so emotional and touching to see.
Yeah.
We've seen a bit of footage from the build process, and it's really beautiful to see the community get around these families building these homes.
But at the same time, like, you got haters, you know,
Right.
People
Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, why? You know, and it's like, if you don't have the guts and the determination and like passion towards it, like, I think the main thing that you get out of it is the passion that everyone has. you know, and even like, you know, like I said, the haters will hate, but at the end they might be the person that puts the last stroke on the building, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
like, yeah.
AJ from the Water Tower really inspired us because he just, he really stuck to his guns and what he was wanting to do. And I guess when everyone could see how cool it would be, you could see these videos of them all like cutting out pieces of the water tower to put in a window, and
and he said that very clearly. He's like, people, when they see you just chasing after your dream, people will come alongside of you. I've seen it myself, you know.
They will definitely shut you down, and I don't know if you guys have built your own houses or renovated or anything like that, but it's you don't give yourself like enough praise as well. Like, we've done our house and everything like that, and you never just ever sit back and be like, look at it and go, wow, we did this shit, you know, like we did it on our own.
I think that's why they really inspired us, because we do that, like in our small 70s homes in Melbourne. We really love the idea of reusing spaces and renovating houses. But yeah, it's hard to not let negativity encroach your brain from, you know, just trusting yourself and your instincts.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been learning that lesson over and over again. We took on a lot of clients when we started our business, mostly because we needed to. But we didn't necessarily have the luxury of being as selective as we would have liked. But sometimes even going through those iterations and overcoming or pushing through even the negativity that comes to you, it's kind of a flex on the muscle. And it tests my mettle. You know, do I really want, is this worth going through? Is this worth pushing through? Whether it's building a house or starting a business or a film that you're filming across on the other side of the globe from where you're from. There's all kinds of challenges, and that belief is what pushes you through to keep doing that. And you guys captured those stories in so many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, Kalyn, did y'all have any other questions for Damien or Stephanie?
I think we covered like so much.
I don't know that we covered the butcher's possessions, though. That was that is the next thing I'd like to talk about. If you're on, that's the one on Amazon, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I know what I'm watching tonight.
Yeah.
You know what? Like at the time when we shot that, we'd only started dating 6 months before, and we thought, hey, let's just make our own content. And that actually started us buying our own cameras. Like, I bought my first photographic
camera,
first cinematography camera, and we actually
it wasn't even a photo camera. It was a film camera. It was just a DSLR.
The Canon, I had a Canon 70D and a 650. We just
I love it.
And it's like, just pick it up and just do it. You know, like
yes.
People are gonna hate you, whether like you might love the film or you might hate the film, but I don't give a shit. I loved it.
Right, exactly.
We had such a good time.
I got friends. I got my wife out. You know?
Absolutely. Well, but you know, and you know, I brought it up kind of with a little tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it speaks to our very conversation about chasing dreams, and that's why Raynard Architectural Designs exists. We had nothing, we had no portfolio. I think I had like $100 to spend on the registration. And we're like, you know what? But we knew that we wanted to do this. We knew that we wanted to see people get their homes built, and whether it's an awesome slasher film that I'm going to be watching tonight with popcorn on the couch, or the house that you sit in to watch it, it's like. I find so much inspiration in people who pursue their creative projects and pursue their passions. So with that, like, we're so grateful that you guys shared just a little bit of your story with us, because I feel like there's so much more. But we want to turn anybody who's listening to our podcast or watching this on YouTube, want to turn them to Shelter, and give you guys an opportunity to plug. What would you like anybody listening to hear about how they can follow your work or how they can connect with you?
Oh God, Australians, I think, are the worst at plugging ourselves. So
yeah, considering we started acting, we're very like
I'll plug you then. Are you on Instagram?
Well, you can see it on Shelter Stream, and our creative work is on bemoredesigns.com.
We'll drop those links in for anybody who wants to see your work there. But if you don't subscribe to Shelter, we all love it. The three of us enjoy the content. We get to meet some beautiful people like yourselves through our relationship to Shelter, and so we really highly recommend anybody who loves architecture, as they say, that are design nerds. Shelter is a great place to find it. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Damien, Stephanie, getting up early in Melbourne to join us. And we're going to be planning some company trips. I don't know if we're going to prioritize Iceland or Australia. There's a running debate now, but we would love to meet you guys in person when we come down under, which we are planning to do regardless in the next few years.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Looking forward to it.
And go to Iceland.
And do that.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, if y'all want to come to Atlanta, we will treat you to some good Southern fried chicken and plenty of Coca-Cola as you can drink.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, guys.